pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item 1, I would invite you all to look at the civility and decorum statement at the top. I'm not going to read it, but it's there. Please, let's try and do that. Instead of roll call, if there be no objection on the part of the board, since Ms. Husak is not here, I would like to ask Ms. Franz to serve as secretary this evening. No objection? Good. We don't have to vote on it. So, Ms. Franz, if you would take the roll, please.
Okay, Mr. Chrisman?
Here.
Mr. Fedorcha?
Here.
Mrs. Franks here. Ms. Husak? Mr. Kern?
Here.
Mrs. Culp? Here. Mrs. Snyder? Mrs. Williams? Here. Mr. Green?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, you've all received copies of the minutes of the preceding meetings. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Here.
Second.
Thank you. Was that Chad?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or discussions, additions, subtractions? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And so ordered. Special board reports. Since Gail is not here, we'll skip that one. LCTI, Mr. Deutsch, anything
We
this
did
evening?
not have a meeting in July. Normally, we are off for the summer, so
Thank you.
we'll report after November, or after November, yeah, I'm sorry, after August.
So I'll report after.
Yeah.
Lehigh Carbon, just a couple things. We're still experiencing slight declines in enrollment, both in number of students, number of classes, number of courses, et cetera. We were just chosen, I don't know if you know this, I'm saying this to Chad, as a military-friendly college. We got that designation, so that's a good thing. And we've done a lot of stuff for the military people down there. I'm not going to get into details, but we have over the years. So, okay, it's the way we're supposed to move through agendas. Committee meetings and the reports. You have a lot of minutes there from all those meetings. And I guess we're to item F, solicitor's report. Anything this evening?
I do. I just want to report that, I think it was good because Mrs. Snyder isn't here.
No, he didn't.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to report to the board that Act 67 is now, has been passed by the Pennsylvania legislature. It had been known as House Bill 663. And it updates the residency dispute provisions in the public school code. Under the new law, schools cannot disenroll a student during a residency dispute until the matter is fully resolved through any appeals. Previously, we could remove a child while a residency dispute was pending. It applies both to disputes about whether or not a student resides in the district, and also applies to those Section 1302 guardianship affidavit disputes as to whether or not they actually have a student, a non-resident student residing with them in the district. The law takes effect in 60 days after being adopted on July 12th. So beginning September 10th of 2024, we need to keep a child enrolled within our district while a residency dispute is pending. So, any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Assistant Superintendent, ESSER grants.
Yes, we're nearing the end of the week.
I was going to say, we're still doing that, aren't we? Yeah, that's,
So just to give you some updates on our grant spending since our last conversation, we continue to spend money on salary and benefits of our ESSER added positions, including administration, faculty, and staff. We had hotspot monthly fees, which is a continuation that we've been paying over the past few months. And then we also had this time around some summer program salary and benefits of the employees that participated, transportation for the students to come to those summer programs, and then also some supplies. So that is the report for our ESSER spending.
thank you.
We also have our summer data presentation to offer to the board and public, so I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Pine to begin.
Good evening, everyone. So for this month's data presentation, I'm going to kind of put data in quotes. There is some actual hard data in here, but a lot of this is just a reflection we wanted to give on a lot of the work that we've done over the past 4 summers, this summer included, some of which is wrapping up as a result of ESSER funds wrapping up. So, I mean, as you know, over the past 4 summers, we've had a lot more to report in the summers, not only in terms of student programs, but also in terms of increases in camps for faculty and professional development that we've been able to offer both asynchronously, synchronously in person, and then more recently in blended courses. Mr. Hobbs. Just real quick, as we go through this, I kind of want to highlight the background reason for a lot of these programs and why we've had these in place, why they were funded this way through ESSER, and what it really comes down to is the long-standing research that we have on learning loss. And so we heard learning loss come up a lot throughout the pandemic, but summer learning loss, or the summer slide, as it's colloquially referred to, is a very real thing. And there are a lot of assumptions about which groups it affects. A lot of those are false. Summer learning loss really affects across socioeconomic statuses, across racial groups. It's basically if there's no learning happening over the summer, there's actually loss of learning from the previous year. So about 20 to 30% of academic gains from the previous year, which is about a month of learning, is lost over those summer months. So when students are coming back to us, they are coming back in having lost learning that they had when they left us the previous year. It takes about 2 to 3 hours per week of some sort of instruction and learning, typically within literacy, sometimes numeracy, to erase that learning loss. Across both literacy and numeracy by 6th grade, that can lead to about a 1.5-year gap in reading and math skills. And that's in spite of the fact that teachers are often spending about a month of time in the beginning of the year, often, the first quarter of the year, reteaching things in order to continue on with the curriculum at a cost of about $1,500 per student, which, just for perspective, in a district our size is about $2.25 million. So for all those reasons, we've engaged in these summer programs in response to the pandemic in order to try to avoid further slide in our summers. So to do that, Mr. Ross? Some of these summer programs existed prior to the pandemic. Some of them will continue to exist beyond the ESSER funding. But these are the 5 core programs. Beyond these, we also have other programs. We have our music programs that run. I don't know why that bird won't stop moving. I'm sorry, that was my fault in the presentation creation. And you know, we have a Bulldog Academy grade recovery program that we use for failures right now. There are other pieces, but these are some of our bigger programs. So just a quick glance up there. Those are the individuals who have been responsible for organizing and running those. Those are the grade levels they cover, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about each of those in the following slides. Mr. Ross. So the first, Open Horizons, which is probably our largest program tied to ESSER funding and directly tied to our goals as they relate to summer learning loss in literacy and numeracy. So just some pictures up there from this year, but quick stats. So we have about 70 to 75 students per year. The second year was kind of a weird year. We had a drop. We were down around 45 students. But the other 3 years that we've run this, we've had about 75. It's 170 unique students because many of those come back year after year. And within those groups, when we look at all of their reading and math growth, 76% of students made progress in the summer, didn't lose, and made progress. And 71% of students in math made progress in the summer participating in those programs. Mr. Holmes. After the first year, where we had Open Horizons running K through 8, we realized we needed a completely separate program for our middle level students. So was born under the leadership of Dr. Manny Gonzalez, the Inspire, which is an offshoot of all the work that they're already doing at the secondary level with the Inspire program, the Inspire Summer Program. So the Inspire Summer Program was thematically based around world cultures and civilizations as a jumping off point for experimenting and exploring literacy, numeracy, and inquiry in cross-curricular ways. So in 3 years, the Inspire program, which was smaller, we had less participation at the middle level, served 30 students. And of course, we all know our NLSD STEAM Camp, which is funded through the Northern Lehigh Education Foundation and through generous donations from Neff's Bank and Embassy Bank. So the STEAM Camp program, this is some highlights from this year, has been running since prior to the pandemic. During the course of the ESSER funding has expanded to include middle school students as well, which we hope to see continue. Everything from rocketry to rock candy. The students are learning inquiry-based lessons throughout the course of that 2 weeks in order to understand more about chemistry, about biology, and about earth sciences around them. It's very inquiry-driven, very project-based, and on that little survival checklist on the side, you can actually see those are some real things that the students learned how to do, such as making an oven out of a pizza box. So if you ever have a survivalist situation, a slice of pizza, and you don't know what to do, I would say turn to our students who are in the STEAM camp. So Haas. And then another new program that came during the course of the post-pandemic period, but that we are anticipating staying with us beyond the ESSER funding, because that is funded through state money and other grant monies through the SHINE program and through Lehigh Carbon Community College, is our SHINE program. The SHINE program is a little bit unique in that it actually seeks to enlist and enroll students for the lifetime of their education in order to have the most impact with that group of students. So there are some conditions that are built around their participation, but there are lots of benefits as well, including meals throughout the year, transportation, and daily tutoring, which actually is a great pair up with their summer programming because they're both approaches that evidence shows can have a real impact in turning the tide on student learning. Mr. Hobbs. And then our newest program, the Kinder Quest at Peters Elementary School, our Peters Pups. I actually feel a little guilty presenting this because this is 100% the brainchild of Mr. Schneiderite. It was his vision that we would have a program where we'd be able to bring in students and have teachers learn more about students who are coming into our buildings for the first time so that we can better assign them and meet their needs in their class assignments. Have students come into the building and feel more comfortable getting 100% of the attention of all the faculty on site, instead of that also then having to be divided among the other grade levels in first and second grade. 100% of the survey respondents said that this was a valuable experience and they think this is a thing that we should be doing. It reduced anxiety for students and parents alike, and 77 students of our incoming kindergarten class took part of that, and that's a pretty cool number. I mean, obviously that's not everyone, it'd be amazing to have everyone there, but that's a lot of students that we know a lot more about going into assignments in the beginning of the school year. 6 of our teachers, including obviously school counselors, 5 support staff, including a nurse were involved, and we had 56 parents show up to hear Mr. Schneiderite talk about kindergarten and what the parents can expect as their children come into the building a week and a half now, in 2 weeks. This was our Kinder Quest for Peters Pups. And Mr. Hobbs. The last thing we have on here is ESY, and Ms. Sada, I kick it off to you if you want to talk about.
Sure. We every year have an ESY program. It is for students who are eligible under 7 criteria, and that is a lot of our students don't regain what they've lost, and it's a regression, retention kind of program. So we had 44 students this year that were eligible. We had 34 that attended just this year. And some of the programs that are included in that is the life skills support program, the emotional support, deaf and hard of hearing, multiple disabilities, and the autism classes. This year was an Olympic theme, by the way. Every year they have a theme.
Yes, and per that request, I did try. I got the rings up there. Slide. I fell a little short on some of the other thematics I might have been able to put in. So that's a summary of our student programs. I mean, before I step down, obviously, I want to put a huge thanks out to all of the teachers around the district, Ms. Bile, Dr. Gonzalez, Mr. Weber, and Dr. Butts. So I know Dr. Butts and Mr. Weber are continuing to do STEAM camp, and all of our other teachers and support staff who have made these things happen. We'll be sad to see some of them go, but we will be excited to continue to support the programs that we have. Questions?
I just want to say I'm thrilled with the number of the special ed classes as far as the participation. That's a pretty good percentage. You did a great job.
It's growing.
So as you heard, our students were very busy this summer, but so were our faculty. We would not be able to run the programs without our faculty. Our faculty also participated in quite a bit of training this summer. So our administrators, faculty, and staff have been hard at work this summer preparing for the upcoming school year. These are just a few of the areas that we'll highlight in the next few slides. Mr. Haas? Several of our teachers have begun the work of learning about our new ELA program at the elementary level so that they can be ready for implementation at the start of the school year. Many teachers also focused on revamping their Canvas pages with an emphasis on instructional design, engagement, and clarity. Lastly, a group of teachers participated in the AI Playground. This was an experimentation with cutting-edge AI tools that allowed teachers to learn more about them and how they might use them to help students in their classroom. Our technology integration specialist, Ms. Dunham, led several of these trainings and others as well over the summer. I'd like to thank her for all of her work that she did in leading a whole bunch of trainings this summer. Mr. Haas? This slide shows some of our safety trainings from this summer. In the first picture, you'll see Mr. Marks and Mrs. DeHart. They're leading some of our school teams in Crisis Prevention Institute training, which is trauma-informed de-escalation training used for decreasing challenging behaviors. In the picture on the right, you'll see Chief Jones. He's providing the annual required Act 55 training regarding emergency drills and recognition of concerning behaviors. He'll do this throughout the year as well. Next slide. This slide highlights Mr. Hauser and his middle school team. In the summer, they came together to further discuss the plans they have for the upcoming school year and their implementation. This included talking about several STEAM technologies that have been recently purchased and set up for use at the middle school. Next slide. In addition to the specific areas we spoke about, there's been a great deal of work happening both on and off our campus this summer, and more will continue throughout up through the start of the school year. There's been training on STEEL standards as we continue to align our curriculum with those ideals and prepare for changes in the state testing in science and biology. Teachers have also continued to update curriculum and pacing guides in all content areas. Lastly, at the end of next week, Whitehall School District will host the 3rd annual EdCom Summit. This event has grown to include many schools beyond the 3 inaugural ones, of which Northern Lehigh was one of them. There are almost 70 presentations that day on all sorts of educational topics. Ms. Dunham, our technology integration specialist, will be presenting quizzes and on AI Playground. And Dr. Link and I will be presenting on leveraging community partnerships for all learners. Next slide, please. Today we also kicked off the beginning of New Teacher Week. So you'll see a lot of new teachers on campus, and they're not just Northern Lehigh new teachers, they're from other districts as well. We have 11 teachers who were hired this summer, as well as 6 that were hired after the start of the last school year, who along with their helping teachers will be joining us tomorrow for new teacher orientation. Additionally, CLIU 21 reached out to me and asked if we can be the host site for their state-required 2-year induction program for new educators from several schools in the Lehigh Valley, and we said absolutely. So there will be about 50 teachers who have to go through year 1 induction program here on Wednesday and Thursday, 8 of which are our new teachers. And there are another 45 to 50 teachers here today who have to go through the year 2 induction program, 3 of which of those participants are ours. They'll also be helping teachers along with those new teachers from other districts joining us. Next slide, please. Next week, all of our professional staff returns to campus. We have 3 in-service days on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of that week. On August 20th, the elementary schools will focus on the new ELA program and curriculum development, while the secondary schools will set goals, receive training on e-hall pass, and become better at AI prompting. On August 21st, we'll start with a welcome back breakfast, followed by district updates, acknowledgement of new staff, and honoring years of service for employees. Teachers will then return to their schools for the trainings that are listed. On August 22nd, there will be building training on safety, our walkthrough tool, engagement strategies, lunch and learn expectations, and more. The day will end with a staff appreciation picnic. Next slide. And that is our summer data presentation for our students and staff. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Green.
All done?
All done.
Thank you. Excellent. Where are we at here? Ms. Malparas? Great report.
Thank you, President Green. We, at our Finance Committee meeting, we gave our update on where the budget was finally passed and where Northern Lehigh stands. Just really briefly, Northern Lehigh, as I mentioned at that meeting, received an additional $231,000 in additional revenue based on the governor's budget that was passed. 99,000 of that can be used for current items within our budget or offset of items. Roughly $131,000 is for the mental health, safety, and security grant and must be used for that purpose. But overall, the district did receive another $231 in additional revenues that was not part of the original budget that was presented. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Malparas? No? Okay. Wayne, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Green. I'd first like to just point out that we missed public comment, but nobody has signed up for public comment on the signature sheet.
Yes, we did it. I didn't see any new names there, so I thought I'd go back.
My fault for not catching that earlier. But we will have another opportunity for public comment at the end of the meeting. I would also like to quickly say, again, thank you to everyone that have been involved in our summer programs, setting our students up for success and our staff up for success for the start of the new school year. It was a very busy and active summer on campus this school year. And then a special acknowledgement to Mr. Schneiderite for our first ever KinderQuest. Was able to stop over a couple different days, and it was remarkable. I'm going to put a plug in now that I hope that is a program that we can continue in years to come, because it truly did make a difference for those incoming kindergartners, their parents, and for our faculty that will be working with those children.
How many days was that?
It was 3 days, about 2 hours each day. 3 hours. About 3 hours each day.
And most parents worked all 3 of them?
No, just the last day.
Just the last
There was a special session that Mr. Schneiderite hosted for parents and guardians.
Okay.
That's a good parent participation first.
Yeah, well, I
In the
think it
middle
was
of
good.
the day.
Next on my update, I would just like to, I'm obligated to say that we are reviewing our health and safety plan again. We are not recommending any changes to our health and safety plan. This will be the last time that we have to do this, much like the ESSER reports. But because that was part of the ESSER funding requirements, that does not sunset until later in the fall. We are at the 6-month part. The last time we reviewed it was in January. I am not recommending any changes to the health and safety plan. However, I can open that up for feedback if anybody would like to change it. Okay, moving on. Next, I would like to introduce 2 of our architects from Alloy 5 this evening. Emily and Michelle are here with us. They're going to kind of give like a halfway update on the feasibility study, which the school board had approved a couple months ago. So you're welcome to come up to the podium or however you want to do it. Just please notify Mr. Hawes when you would like the slide change.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us this evening. If you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. Do a quick introduction. Our principal and one of the founding architects of Alloy 5, Randy Galliotto, is actually in Italy right now, so he won't be able to join us tonight, but he would be here otherwise. We also have Emily. She is our project architect, and then myself, Michelle, senior designer with Alloy 5. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, real quick, just to kind of give everyone a brief understanding of how we plan on going through the process of this feasibility study. As Dr. Link said, we're at about the halfway point here. So, our first step was data collection, analysis, and evaluation. That was really when our team got to know the Northern Lehigh School District team and understand through end user meetings and bi-weekly design team meetings, some of the history of the district and where we'd like to see the future go, and talking with each of the principals a little bit about each of their buildings. That coincided with step 2, which is building evaluations, and that was when our team, as well as the McClure Company team who worked on the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, went through each of the buildings from pretty much blacktop to rooftop and explored each nook and cranny and evaluated the current conditions of the buildings. That's what we're going to look at today. That's kind of what we call our midpoint check-in, where we want to take a break real quick, a pause, and review the current status of the buildings per our evaluations. And then that third step will be at the end of our study, probably in the fall, mid-October, at another board update. We'll present some paths forward and what some concept designs might look at based on some of the feedback we've received to date and how our building evaluations have looked. So we've explored both the functionality of the buildings and how they're evaluated, as well as how they're working for the principals and the students and the Northern Lehigh community as well. Next slide. So again, this kind of just maps out what that 3 steps looks like in a timeline. We kicked off this project end of May, early June with Dr. Link and his team. We meet bi-weekly to do check-ins and review progress. Through that data collection time, we sat down with each principal. At one meeting, we also met with food service, librarians, technology, and transportation as well to get their feedback on really making sure we're capturing a very holistic view of the district and making sure we're seeing where the good and the bad is throughout the whole district. And then that overlaps with the building evaluations. So again, as we were kind of having those conversations, we were at that same time in real time going in through these buildings and talking. So after speaking with some of the principals, we had just been in their building and we could really have a great conversation about what the status of their buildings are. And then as you can see here, as we wrap up the summer, we're really going to start to kick off those concept design discussions and start to look at what some possible paths forward are for the district for us to explore in this study. Again, we'll have that project delivery for October, and we'll be back to present the final study as well as what some of those paths forward might look like for the board and the public to see. Next slide. Thank you. So real quick, just a little overview of the campus. I'm sure everyone is very familiar with their district, but there's 2 elementary schools right now. There's Peters Elementary that hosts K-2. Slatington Elementary, which is attached to the district's office that we are in right now, has 3 through 6. The middle school hosts 7 through 8, and then the high school 9 through 12. One of the unique things about the district is that, as you can see here, most of the district's infrastructure, both in buildings and athletics and fields, is located in one site, this site here. And then we've got that one lingering up there, Peters Elementary, not too far away, a couple minutes down the road, but not necessarily associated with this campus. In terms of athletics, which we'll touch on today, we also have the field house and then the maintenance garage as well, is all located on this site. And as it stands right now, the district is kind of hovering just under 1,600 students at 1,578. Next slide. So understanding that number of just shy of 1,600, what we really want to look at also when we see these buildings is what we call capacity of the building. So that's looking at how many kids are in a building, how many kids should be in a building. And the goal is always to hover around that 85% mark. That accounts for about 21, 22 students per classroom. It's a nice comfortable spot. In case you have those bubble years that come up every so often, a very large grade, that means that that classroom in that school can support that capacity without busting at the seams or needing to make compromises from other support spaces to create additional classrooms. But it also doesn't mean that your building's half empty and you're paying and supporting infrastructure that might not necessarily need to be supported. So that's where we really like to stay, and that's another thing that we evaluated when we look at each of these buildings. So if we go to the next slide here, we'll just note that we did do our surveys. We spent 2 days in the district, full days, team of 3 of us from Alloy 5 and 3 or 4 from McClure. And we went through each building individually. We'll talk through what we call our building report cards. So that's going to be how we evaluated each building. And if we go to the next slide, I'll walk through what that process looks like, how we got there. So to create a building report card, what we have is a building evaluations rubric. So this is essentially a spreadsheet that we have that has 2 different columns that support different aspects that we want to see when we're looking at a building. And we break that out for what we call each building element. So we're going to look at the interior walls versus the doors versus the ADA compliancy of a building. There's a formula that comes into that spreadsheet that pretty much spits out a number ranging from 1 to 10. And if you're on the 1 to 2 side of that, you're looking at an excellent building element, something that we really don't need to look at for another 8 to 10 years. It's in really great condition. And that spans all the way down to the next extreme, which is somewhere in that 8 to 10 range, which is what we consider critical, that has a red color associated with it. That's something we want to make sure we're looking at immediately, or just really want to note the severity of that item on the list there. As you're going to see, most things tend to hover in that good to average range. That's where the schools stay at typically, because we do invest in our schools. But it's really important to note that especially we're in that average category there, that 3 to 5 years, that timing, that creeps up on us real quick. That comes up pretty fast, and that's where we start to see that we have buildings that are in an average category. We want to make sure that we're making investments so that we don't see our buildings slip into that poor critical category over the years. And we're going to see a little bit of that in some of the buildings we're going to talk about today. All right, Emily.
All right. So I'll go through each building. You'll see kind of our fast stats will be the first slide, and then the evaluation rubric that Michelle had just shared will be the second, followed by some images. So I'll go through each section. So we started at Peters Elementary. Again, that's your primary K-2 school. The building is a little under 80,000 square feet at about an 84% capacity. So like Michelle had said before, that one is like perfect capacity, is right in the area that you want to be. It is one of the older buildings in the district, so overall it rates at about an average. That some things will start falling into that poor category or looking more critical as it ages even more. Right now it's in good shape, but there are things that you'll see, if you can go to the next slide, that, I forgot we did floor plans. Floor plans first. So Peters is 2 stories. Your K1 is on the ground floor with your second grade on the second level, which I think is the next slide. And then all of your primary support spaces are on that first floor as well, your gym and cafeteria and the admin suite. So, all right, the next slide now, we'll have your building scores. So these are the categories that we analyze. This is consistent through all of the buildings that you'll see forthcoming. So the site in Peters is in really good shape. The building envelope is where you'll see maybe some more average categories. So Peters is 1950s and then early 90s. And then other than that, it hasn't had a significant amount of work done to it. So some of that exterior envelope, the masonry, is original and obviously has been repaired and maintained since, but there is some wear and tear that is starting to happen on the brick. The interior of the building is where you're going to start to see some of those poor or maybe critical scores, and again, that is because of the age of the building. So some of the flooring finishes are wearing. The doors you'll see are on a poor category. That could be due to signage, door clearances, door hardware. So that's something that we analyze too. And then ADA and code compliance. So in Peters, there's really 2 things. The building was built before ADA compliance was enacted in '92. So there are bathrooms that are non-compliant. It doesn't mean they're not functional. It just means they do not meet the current ADA code. A lot of that has to do with turning radiuses, grab bars, door clearances. So there's marks for that. And then the other code compliance thing at Peters is stair handrails and guardrails have changed in building code form since the 90s.
So some of those are either non-grippable, which means they don't have the tube that you're used to seeing. Sometimes in older buildings it's like a bar or a rail. So things like that are really things we're looking at when we're going through. The mechanical system in Peters is kind of nearing the end of its life. It has had some central plant work, but as far as general and HVAC overhaul, again, that hasn't happened since the 90s. Electrical is in a similar position, and the plumbing is as well, with the exception of the water heaters have been replaced. If you can go to the next slide. Here's some examples of what the interior of that building looks like if some of you haven't been in there in a while. So some of the things that are working really well there, sidewalks have been replaced. Again, the exterior has been maintained really well. The parking lots have been repaved. The secure vestibule was put in sometime around 2016, I believe. And that is working well. Some things you'll start to see that are not, like, things that normally might be an excellent score fall maybe a score below what we normally would have ranked. So a secure vestibule, and this is fairly consistent throughout your district, which is why I'm going to bring it up now. A lot of the times your secure vestibule is not in the main path of travel. So something that is working well from a security standpoint maybe got like 1 point reduction because it is not a very clear and distinct marked entrance. It is kind of in the middle of your building instead of like where a main entrance would normally be, or where the main entrance at one point was and then relocated. The interior walls are in really good shape. There's the library and then typical classroom pictures. On the bottom you'll see some of the areas where maybe we could improve a little bit: the aging masonry, the aging casework, non-compliant bathrooms, and some wear and tear on your finishes. You can go to the next slide. We'll go to Slatington. So Slatington is your newest building in the district. So the original portion was from the 70s. Thought we had these on the slide, and now I'm just running from memory. So originals from the 70s, and the addition was done in 2010, 2011. So we have a little under 100,000 square feet here. Again, this one houses 4 grades, so it is, a larger building, larger than Peters. Here you are actually over that 85% capacity ideal, so you're more in the mid-90s range, which is, kind of at the top end of where we want to be. It stops allowing for kind of those bubble years and extra growth. A lot of that here is due to the fact that it was pods that were filled in, so there's a very specific team and grading structure in this building in particular. Overall, this building ranks in the good category. Obviously, there's always things that will need to be addressed because it is a building and they do age, but a lot of the scores here are in the good or excellent category. You can go to the next slide. We have the 2 floors here, so you have 6th grade on the ground floor, and then on the next slide you have the other 3 grades, the more primary grades on your 2nd floor, along with the cafeteria and some other music and art room, extracurricular classrooms there. And the next slide is where you'll see the report card. So again, the site is in good condition, your envelope's in good condition, the interior is in excellent condition. As far as finishes go, everything is really kind of on par with where we'd like to see buildings. Your site, potentially, you're seeing some lower scores there. There's a lot of program that happens here. So you have the district office as well as the elementary, and you also have a lot of parents coming and dropping off. So something that maybe isn't evident as far as architecture goes, but we see and hear from district staff and district employees that the circulation on this site in particular is not great. There's a really short parent queuing line. So there is some traffic that backs up onto the road. So those are the things that maybe structurally are okay. As architecture, they exist and they are in okay condition, but because we know the reality of living in these buildings is that you're going to have some issues caused by, like the roadways, even though the roads are in good shape, they are causing some circulation problems. So that's where you'll see some lower scores. Again, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, most things went through pretty much a full upgrade when the building was renovated. So you're seeing better scores from the MEP end here than in some of your other buildings. If you go to the next slide, we have some of the images. So again, on the first one, you'll see kind of that circulation issue. So they come in the top drive, and then that makes for a really short queuing line, so it backs up onto the road. If this building, were over 93% capacity or had additional grades in here, we know that fixing that circulation would be something that would have to happen. Right now it functions, not perfectly, but it functions. If there's any more growth in this building, there would have to kind of be a restructure. Your exterior walls, again, are in good shape. Some of the masonry on the west side of the building is from the original building, so there are, a few masonry aging areas there. Everything on the new side is in pretty excellent condition. The interior walls are, again, in great shape. You have some, again, exterior, some of the site walls have some brick spalling. But other than that, all of your interior, your roof, everything inside this building is in really good shape. Next slide, please. The middle school, so we have about 98,000 square feet at the middle school. This houses just 2 grades. It is at 70% capacity, which seems low. However, another grade could not fit into this building because of how large your grades are. So you obviously have a lot of growth here, but it's not enough growth that it is accommodating of another entire class in your district. So that's kind of why that score may look low, but it doesn't mean that there's extra room. This building, again, rates average. It is an older building. It was the high school and then converted to the middle school. So there are some parts of this building that are older than some of the other areas in your district. You can go to the next slide. Floor plan, so your middle school is your only building that is a single story. So everybody is on this floor. Has a courtyard, nice little racetrack pattern there. And then the next slide will be your report card. Again, this site is in good shape there. There are some aging sidewalk problems, but not anything that is causing inability to move around the exterior of the building. The envelope is where you're going to start to see a little bit lower scores. There is some weather sealant issues. There's some masonry spalling and some just missing mortar. And the metal panel, I think, is starting to wear and age at a much faster rate than the masonry is. Your roof is in really good shape, and your exterior doors, again, are starting to see a little bit of that aging happen. From an architectural interior standpoint, where you're seeing some lower scores here are really the doors. Again, a lot of that is signage, hardware, and clearance, and then your ADA compliance, which here it's really just in the toilet rooms and any sinks that don't have aprons, that kind of slant, that is considered non-ADA compliant because of toe clearance. So anything that is in older casework in that building falls into that non-compliant category. When the middle school was renovated, the mechanical and electrical systems were also updated. You don't have sprinklers at the middle school, but your water heaters have been replaced, and the kitchen was completely overhauled in the last 2 years, I think. And the next slide, you'll start to see some of those images. So circulation at this building works really well, and also will relate to the high school. Middle school and high school have the same drop-off and pickup time, so the bus lanes work really well. You have ample parking, and kind of the circulation around the site works very well there. Some typical classroom pictures. The roof was replaced very recently and the EPDM is in really good shape. Your exterior walls, here's again where you're going to start to see some of the lower scores. There's some cracking and maybe some bricks falling throughout. The sidewalks are starting to see some wear and tear with exposed aggregate, and then metal panels on the exterior are kind of decaying. Your ADA compliance throughout, again, drinking fountains and restrooms is really where you're seeing those. And then you can go to the next slide. The high school, so your high school is about 134,000 square feet. You have 489 students enrolled there, and that one again is at the perfect capacity. I don't think I've ever looked at a school that was at 85 on the money right there. It's perfect. So this school is again coming up in the average zone. It was built in the 80s and received an addition in the early 2000s. And so that's really where you're going to start to see some of those lower scores, things that haven't been touched since the 80s. If you can go to the next slide. So your high school is actually 3 stories. The lower level has the cafeteria and some of the tech and music spaces. The next floor up is kind of where you enter in. That has the gym, the auditorium, the library. And then the next floor up is the second floor where you're primarily on your academics. And next slide. So your report for the high school, again, your score is hovering around average with a wide range of scores here. For the exterior, again, your site is in good shape. Everything's been repaved. The sidewalks are in good shape. The exterior ADA compliance, because your high school is kind of sunken, everything that gets you access to the first floor is that there's ramps everywhere. They are all at a steeper incline than ADA currently allows. It doesn't mean they're not functional. It just means that they don't meet that current code. They all do have handrails. They are just too steep now to be considered ADA compliant. Again, it was built in the 80s. It was kind of a different time as far as ADA compliance. As long as there was a ramp, they considered everything to be accessible. Your building envelope is in pretty good shape. Some exterior walls, you're seeing some aging masonry. Your expansion joints and weather sealants are starting to age. A lot of them are original. The roof is in really good shape. The exterior doors and windows are in really good shape. On the inside of the building, again, where you're kind of seeing a lower score is that ADA compliance. So that's affecting the code compliance category, also the door category. Your door hardware is non-compliant. The signs on the doors are non-compliant, and a lot of the restrooms are not compliant. Again, this is fairly typical for a school that was built well before ADA compliance was enacted, but just something, again, to keep in mind kind of moving forward. The mechanical systems were recently renovated and replaced. Same with electrical. A lot of the plumbing is original, aside from, again, the hot water heaters. But again, your plumbing fixtures, because of that ADA compliance score being low, your plumbing fixture score also becomes low because that's kind of what it's analyzing. Next slide. You'll see some of the images. There's adequate parking. The second picture is that main entry ramp. So again, just a little bit too steep to be considered compliant. The roof in excellent condition, having just had a replacement, I think a year ago. Some exterior walls, no drip edge, so again, seeing some masonry issues. Casework is original in most cases. Again, you're not seeing that sink apron there, so there's no toe clearance under the sink, making it non-ADA compliant. Door hardware was a big deduction, I think, on this score here. Knobs are no longer compliant from a ADA standpoint because of the twisting motion, so a lever is the compliant hardware to use. Most of the hardware in the high school is a knob. The finishes are in really good shape. They've been kind of replaced as needed over time. And so all of your interior walls, finishes, ceilings, classrooms are in good shape, and then your plumbing fixtures, again, are seeing those kind of non-ADA compliant scores. All right, next slide, we just have the field house. So your field house is at the Northern Lehigh Stadium, about 27,000 square feet total. That includes the maintenance garage as well. And this is receiving, we have the wrong words there. This is a good score, even though it says average, but it is green. This one ranked good. So the wording is wrong, the color is correct. If you can go to the next slide. Again, you're just one story here. The maintenance and bus garage attached to the field house portion. Next slide. So your report card here is, again, in that overall good rating. Everything is ADA compliant. It was, again, done recently, so you're seeing a lot of more in the good or excellent range here, scores. Parking, your parking lot is in good shape. Obviously, when there are events happening, your parking gets tight, but that is fairly typical. The interior walls, doors, roof, all in excellent shape. The interior finishes, ceilings, and your ADA compliance, again, are all in all compliant, all in good shape. Some things are original, some of the casework looks original, but again, it's your field house. It doesn't get used as heavily as a school building does, so a lot of that is still really in good shape for what it's used for. Mechanical, again, has all good scores, electrical, and then plumbing. Your plumbing doesn't have fire protection, but that's kind of your only critical score on this report. And I think that's it. Oh, there's some pictures. So on your exterior, you're just seeing a little bit of rust or kind of paint peeling from the metal. That's, again, just a maintenance item to be aware of. The lockers are in good shape. Again, it's a football locker room, so some dents and scratches are, we know that they come with it. Your ADA signage is in really good shape. Finishes, again, in good shape. And the interior walls are also in good shape. All right. Yeah, so outside of just the buildings, we also did want to explore the athletics and what Northern Lehigh has to offer. And we really looked at that from the perspective of, certainly there are what we call indoor athletics, and that exists in the high schools, the gymnasiums, aux gyms, things like that. On the whole, most of that kind of gets caught up in the report cards that Emily just went through. But we also wanted to explore the outdoor fields and talk through those a little bit. And when we take a look at these, what we are looking at the condition of the fields, but what we're going to talk about a little bit too is how they're functioning and how much use they're getting. We sat down with the athletic director to talk a little bit about that. So that's what we'll explore next. Next slide. So looking at Bulldog Stadium here, you can see on the whole it's rated average. While it is an overall functioning stadium, it's had some improvements over the year where you can really see that it's taking on some heavy use. It's the one turf field that the district has, so that gives it the ability to get used by pretty much every sport. And you can see that the turf, when you're on the field there, it has seen its wear and tear. But we also want to be mindful of how the experience for that student athletes is for these spaces. So if they're not getting on the field for their practice until 8:30 p.m., and we're talking about a fall or a spring sport before we have the beautiful weather we have right now, we want to make sure that we're creating a positive experience for those students. And we see a lot of usage right now, and over time that's going to continue to affect the wear and tear of Bulldog Stadium, something we want to be mindful of, but at the moment it does sit at a fair condition. If you look at the next slide, we categorized what we're calling B, C, D, and E, which is the baseball, softball, and practice fields. So this kind of combines all four of those quadrants right there. The football practice field, from a usage perspective, is in fair condition. Since it is grass, by the end of football season, usually that grass starts to wear out a bit, and you get a little bit more of the dirt patching that you see right there in that image. That's really what kind of dragged down that rating down to a poor, was that if it's not going to serve the use for the full span of the season, that's something we want to take into consideration. C and D, baseball and softball fields, they do get the primary uses of just baseball and softball, which which is a nice luxury to have, but not a lot of infrastructure available for them right now, and we do know that the district did just invest and is going to be doing some work to those fields, so great to know that by the end of this study, those rates could probably start to change to excellent. So that's what we would like to see when we do these studies, that districts are already making these investments, and we're aligned in our evaluations in the district, already understanding what they're working with in their infrastructure. And then the E for the soccer practice field, again, similarly, it does serve just that one purpose for that one sport, but being a grass field, it's nice for soccer to have that available to them. The proximity to the other fields does pose a bit of a challenge. It does kind of start to overlap with the other fields a bit, and it does experience the wear and tear that grass fields will get from those sports. We'll go to the next slide. We just take a quick look at the middle school fields here. So that's on the corner quadrant of the middle school. Those are in good shape. They do get some use. We know that Northern Lehigh also works with the community a lot to give the community the availability to use these fields as well. So these are some of the fields that get that use as well as some of the middle school sports. But on the whole, you see a lot less wear and tear on these fields. I'll also note the proximity to the buildings is really nice too for student usage, to be able to go to the locker rooms to then head out to these, as opposed to having to go somewhere else far away to get to their fields. It's a really nice perk as well. We also note we do have some of those modulars there that do support some of that athlete storage. We go to the next slide. So that concludes our evaluations for today. It was a bit of an overview, but we wanted to make a point to get a deep dive into some of those items, and we're here to answer any questions for you. I do want to note that just because you see some of these ratings that might not be what we want to see in the district doesn't necessarily mean those are the projects we're going to necessarily pinpoint. We're going to look at this from a holistic approach, a larger picture, maybe some master planning concepts, and that's going to include a few next steps here, which starts with us continuing our bi-weekly meetings, which our next one will be conducted on Wednesday, August 21st. And any opportunity for community outreach, certainly we'll work with Dr. Link to make that happen. We'll continue our design team discussions, review those design concepts, and come back to you guys in the fall and present what we think would be our path forward in collaboration with the district. And we're here to answer any questions you guys might have for us tonight as well.
Great presentations.
Thank you.
One of the things too, I think, looking at this and seeing where we have some weaknesses and so forth, I will say and compliment our maintenance people for maintaining our grounds and our buildings. I think we're in great shape as far as what we're doing for maintenance.
Yes, it's a great luxury for us to be able to do these studies where it overlaps with our evaluations, be able to occur in the summer. There's some perks and downfalls to that, and one of the downfalls is we don't get to see the school activated with the students in it day to day, and that really does help. But that's where the great principal teams here were able to provide us with that information through end user meetings. But coming this summer, we do get to see the maintenance teams in full swing, getting ready for the next school year. You get to see the school almost kind of at its rawest form and really get to see what the building and infrastructures have available for us too. So, yes?
Is your plan to tackle each building individually, or to do like Peters Elementary, then Slatington, and are you going to work on all of them at the same time, or what? What's the thought process on
Yeah,
that?
that's, and Emily, feel free to add it to this as well. That's essentially what this next step that we're going through with Dr. Link is going to be looking at is how do we look at this? Does this become something that we're looking at each individual school and some projects associated with them? Or are we looking at the district more holistically and looking at maybe where's the district in 10, 15 years? What are some of those bigger moves that we could be making? And how can we make sure that we're investing our dollars into the buildings that support that longer path forward?
Okay.
Emily?
Yeah. No. I think that was perfectly said. It's sometimes what happens with a study like this, sometimes the options kind of split into two categories. One is kind of what we call our capital action or capital maintenance plan, where we're really kind of giving priority to some of those scores that you're seeing that are lower, but then there's also kind of the second step to that where it's kind of a master plan overview of, if we know a building isn't going to stay online or isn't currently functioning as you want it to function as far as a grade alignment goes or something like that,
that master plan also is reflected in that capital improvements too. So they kind of go hand in hand, which again is kind of what's nice to come out of this study. You kind of get a laundry list and then you get a vision too.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so one of the immediate outcomes that will come out of the study, what service that LY5 provides here is we will provide a master plan list, as Emily said, that would be available to Chris and his team, that will pretty much rank everything we just talked about in an Excel spreadsheet from to poorest to best. So that can just be an asset and a tool that the district has to help determine how they might want to tackle some summer projects over the years, or even just looking at larger projects holistically, and they'll have budget numbers with today's dollars associated with them to help the district and Sherry organize that as well. Yeah. Any other questions? No? All right, well, thank you all so much for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much. And this presentation will become part of the board minutes, and I will also share it out in this Friday's update with the school board directors. Again, thank you for coming up to Northern Lehigh this evening.
Yes.
I hope you both have a good rest of the night. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And Mr. Green, that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you. Okay, an executive session was held at 6 p.m. It was mostly personnel, a little bit of negotiations, etc. Those were probably the two items that we focused on this evening. Okay, very, very long agenda, lots of personnel items. We always have at this time of year, a whole bunch of policies, so we'll try and get through this. So we're going to move to item 4, personnel. Is there a motion to approve the items under personnel? And again, there's, pages of them, so.
So moved.
We have a motion down there?
I'll second.
Thank you. Mr. Fedorcha, any comments?
Yes, I would like to abstain on J5.
Thank you. Any other discussion on personnel? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And so ordered.
And Mr. Green, if I can just take a moment to welcome one of our newest members of our faculty this evening. Miss Josephine Pfluger is here with us, and she's going to be our new reading specialist at Peters Elementary School. Welcome to Northern Lehigh, Josephine.
Welcome. Yeah. Instructional. MNOPQRS TUVW policy. Yay, there it is on page 8. Is there a motion to approve the policy items, please? Gary, thank you.
Second.
Is there a second? Thank you. Any questions or discussion on the policy? I think we went over these pretty heavy at our meeting, so all those in favor of approving the policy, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And so ordered. Okay, I'm moving to page 10, I think, conferences. A motion to approve the 2 conferences.
So moved.
Do you have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And so ordered. Curriculum and instruction. Again, we have a whole bunch of those, A to M. A motion to approve curriculum and instruction.
So moved.
Motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions on curriculum or instruction? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. So ordered. I'm having nothing under old business at this point. Under new business, we have really 3 items, I guess. The confidential secretary A, and then items B and C on page 12. Is there a motion to approve the items under new business?
So moved.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Is that Gary? Thank you. Any questions on those positions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And so ordered.
And if I may welcome also this evening, we have Mrs. Mary Jo King. Welcome to Northern Lehigh School District. I'm very excited to start working with you in a little over a week or so. And Welcome to Northern Lehigh.
Thank you for your support. I look forward to working with you all.
Thanks to both of you for coming out, appreciate it, so. And we did approve that, right? We voted over it, okay. I thought we did, I just wanted to make sure, okay. We didn't want to leave you out in the cold and not officially approve you after all that, so. Okay, we'll now move on to financial. We have items A through J, the SHINE program, motion to approve financial.
So moved.
Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Yes.
Mr. President.
You got Chrisman seconded? Okay. Any questions on the financial items? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And so ordered. I have a question, Michelle. When we set the food prices,
Nikki.
excuse me, when we set the food price, if we get reimbursed from the government, do we get what we set the price at? Or how, is that, they don't have a, like, we'll give you $1.80 for a meal and you gotta come up with it for that, it's whatever,
No.
whatever we charge?
No, we get reimbursed for, like, stuff, like breakfast has a certain dollar amount, it goes up every year that we get reimbursed for
Okay.
every meal we serve. So there's every free breakfast, because we're under CEP, same thing for lunch, and it's a higher amount for lunch, so.
Not
like,
that we would, but we couldn't set breakfast at $12 and
No,
then the
no,
government
no.
like, give us a whole bunch of money. No,
And
it doesn't
those
work that way.
pricings
Okay.
that are listed on our website are just if the student opts to buy a second portion after they already came through and got their free meal. So we have to charge them for that because we
Mhm.
can't get reimbursed
Yeah, I understand that.
twice per student per meal, so.
Okay, thank you. We did that. I have nothing under legal. I have no correspondence. Anything down there, Rhonda, that you got? No? Couple information items there, some minutes. Are there any guests that would like to be recognized this evening anywhere? Going once, going twice? No? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
The motion and second? Gary, thank you. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And we're finished.